So I'm going to start out with you and ask you, Ambassador O'Brien referred to Ukraine and the mess. Can you tell us how we got here? How did it get this bad? When you and I left the White House,
yes,
everything was a lot different.
But I need to say this to start, KT. You are a national treasure. We all love you here.
Thank you.
You're a voice for conservatism.
Thank
Your leadership has meant so much to America, and it was my privilege to serve in the Trump administration with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
To talk about how we got here, though, it's a discouraging story, my friends, because you've got to go back to the day that Joe Biden took office. At that point, he decided to wage war on the oil and gas industry in America. You remember this. He killed the Keystone XL pipeline. He forbade drilling on federal lands, and essentially has made it very, very difficult for any oil and gas company to get financing here in America. What did that do? Not only did it increase energy prices here in America, it increased energy prices around the globe. Well, I'll tell you, the number 2 producer of energy in the world happens to be Russia. Vladimir Putin has been the recipient of this massive windfall in energy price increases. Vladimir Putin has been able to enjoy this massive increase in his financial reserves, which he then is able to deploy, building a war machine that is now being deployed hitting the Ukraine. If you think about it, we've underwritten this thanks to the myopic, short-sighted green energy policies that have created this global financial windfall for Vladimir Putin. That's sort of the big backdrop. But if you think about Putin's negotiations with America, too, what has he seen from us? He's seen us move from a position of strength under President Trump to a position of utter weakness. President Trump was negotiating the New START treaty. This was going after Russia's massive nuclear arsenal. They have many non-conventional weapons. Trump was trying to include more in that agreement. That's why we were holding off extending the agreement until we got more. Putin, wisely, waits to see how the election turns out.
Yeah.
What happens then? Joe Biden steps into the negotiating room, gives Putin a 5-year extension, got nothing for it. A face card, I might add. The next thing that happens, Russian hackers hit the Colonial Pipeline. Those of you that live in my part of the country know what that meant. Gas lines, shortages, prices through the roof. What were the consequences to Russia for that? I can tell you. Nothing. Instead, President Biden comes up with a list of 16 industries. 16 critical industries that he goes and pleads with Putin not to attack. I'm sure Putin looks at this list and says, gee, I didn't even think about number 9 on that list. KT, he probably said, let's hit that one too. And what does it say about the rest of the industries that weren't on that list? Again, negotiating from a position of weakness. And the thing that is most hurtful to me and my colleagues in the Senate is that we imposed mandatory sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. This is the artery that Putin was building to pump gas from Russia directly into Western Europe. It benefits Germany. It benefits Western Europe in the short term. It also weakens Ukraine's strategic posture significantly. Trump stopped this. Trump stopped the completion of that pipeline. As soon as Biden comes in, he waives those mandatory sanctions. He waives those sanctions, allows Putin to complete the pipeline. Every card Putin has been dealt by this administration has been a face card. And then he looks at the situation in Afghanistan. A complete collapse. This sheer lack of American resolve has created an opportunity space for the likes of Vladimir Putin. And the result of that is what we're witnessing right now in Ukraine.
Absolutely. I mean, you got the answers here. But where does Ukraine go now? I don't know if any of you have been watching. There's been a lot of street fighting in Kiev, block-to-block fighting. And so where do you think it goes in the next couple of days in Ukraine specifically?
Well, Ukraine is showing the resolve that I think all of us in America wish we showed every day. Zelensky was offered an opportunity to escape. Yes. Strength and resolve is what the world needs. Strength and resolve is what thugs like Vladimir Putin need to see from us. But what Zelensky said was, I don't need a ride out. I need ammunition. I need to be in a position to fight back. That's how America can help. I think what we're going to see from the Ukrainians is their resolve. They're going to increase the cost to Putin of doing this. Mm-hmm. Putin has stepped in. He's taken on some of the weaker, or the easier opportunities, I should say, the lower-hanging fruit with their Russian-speaking populations, very similar to what he did back in 2014 when Obama was president and they annexed Crimea. They stepped in, a position of weakness was seen. They stepped in and took what they wanted. He's now in Ukraine. I think he's trying to assess what he wants. And the Ukrainians are fighting hard to increase the cost of moving further than he already has.
So let's take the other thing about Ambassador Senator Haggerty is he had a very, very successful business career prior to going into government service, and you spent a good bit of that time around the world in international businesses. How do you think the rest of the world sees all of this right now?
Oh, it's extremely disturbing, and I think that's on every person's mind in the United States Senate. Certainly on your mind, KT, the national security experts that we have around the world are watching this very, very closely because they know that President Xi in China is watching everything that happens with respect to Ukraine very carefully. The analogy for him is Taiwan. You think about Xi's observations here. What is the world's resolve? How is America going to stand up? How are other Western nations going to stand up? How will Japan stand up to this? He's watching this to see if there's a lesson learned for him. But when you think about Taiwan and the strategic value of Taiwan to America and the rest of the world, it's a very different story. Semiconductors, the new oil of this century, are mainly produced there in Taiwan. The vulnerability that Taiwan poses is significant, and America has very strategic interest with regard to Taiwan. We need not take our eye off the ball with Ukraine. We need to keep in mind China's influence, China's aggression, and we need to continue to remain strong and build our presence in the Indo-Pacific and not let this waver us.
And so how do the allies in Asia look at this? I mean, we'll get to back to the European ones in a minute, but Japan's looking at this. Korea's looking at this. There are a number of people from Korea. We have a very large delegation from Korea and from Japan who attend CPAC every year, and we do CPAC conferences in those countries too. But how do they look at America and the current administration?
So with respect to the Ukrainian situation, Japan, South Korea are stepping up, saying that they will, help supply natural gas. They'll tap their own strategic reserves. They're trying to be helpful, but I think they're extraordinarily nervous. Again, they need a strong America. I can tell you, serving as the American ambassador to Japan at a time when Kim Jong-un was launching rockets from North Korea, the world needs a strong America. And we stepped up and we were strong. And the situation calmed in the Indo-Pacific. China has built these artificial islands. They did this under the Obama administration. Along the South China Sea, one of the busiest sea lanes in the world, they armed them. They put armaments there. I remember President Xi telling Obama in the Rose Garden, I have no intention to militarize those islands. Of course, he turned right around and did it. But when President Trump came into office, things began to change. America began to stand strong again, and we began to move in a way that brought calm and peace. We would not be in this situation today were President Trump in office right now.
Agreed. So what happens next with Taiwan, China? I mean, some people are saying, World War III. By the way, some of those same people are saying World War III with Ukraine. Are we getting into fighting wars with any of these guys?
I think it's a great concern with respect to Taiwan. We have been continuing to increase the rhetoric with respect to U.S. presence in the Indo-Pacific. I've applauded that by the Biden administration. We need to do more, though. The biggest concern I have right now is the Biden administration presented a budget to us that essentially defunds the Department of Defense. Net of inflation, he's defunding the Department of Defense. We're working on increasing that right now. We need to have a trade-off where we reduce the spending on things domestically here that are inducing lack of work, the massive social programs that are having actually a devastating effect on our own economy and our own country, and increase our strength and power because the situation that has erupted since Biden has taken office has made the world a far more dangerous place. So we need to increase our funding, we need to increase our posture, and we need to focus our military rather than on woke social engineering issues, focus them on lethality, focus them on training, focus them on becoming more interoperable with our allies, more joint exercises with South Korea, with Japan. That's where we need to be focusing our effort right now, more than ever before.